everyone, welcome back to the CollabCast. I'm editor Katie Cusack here with editor David King and local professional actor Aaron Moore. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. I'm even better now being on this show with you guys. It has been definitely sort of like a milestone and Capital Region milestone to be on this. So thank you so much for having me.
It's you've been knocking down our door to get on.
Right. Feels right.
I have. I was like, where are these guys at? If you didn't, I was gonna bust through that door during the interview and be like, "Move! You're interviewing me now."
We had to prevent the Kool-Aid Man during our last interview, and
so it was getting there. It was getting to that point. It was getting right
Checked
to that
every
point.
room in this godforsaken building.
Like, halt! Stop everything.
But in all honesty, you work in the building. You didn't know where the studio was.
I didn't know.
Nobody does. We keep
that could
it
have been
secret.
a secret. That could have been a secret between us.
Well,
now it's out there. So.
Well, I don't want people to actually think that you were knocking down our door. I mean, that would be that would be unjust.
I know where things are.
I'm sorry. But you're here today because, I mean, you've had a long presence as not only an actor, but as someone who does education and activism. And you've been trying to advance the cause, I think, for quite some time now. And we were just talking off camera about the idea that there has been sort of a renaissance in terms of the community, diversity, and folks helping each other, I think, more than normal. Maybe there aren't as many opportunities still as there should be. Right. So where do you think we are, and compared to when you first started?
Well, when I first started, I was a child actor. So when I first started, I was acting locally around the area through my aunt. She was a director here, and I would act through her shows that she directed, and other people would see me act and say, "Oh, can I have Aaron in my show?" And through that, kind of trained, and then did that through high school. I stopped for a little bit and then came back in high school and didn't really found that passion. I think right now we are in a really great growth and really great sort of growth going, and up and beyond, and that's really great with theater companies, especially theater companies like Illuminate Theater Company and the Black Theater Troupe of Upstate New York and Callaloo Theater and a few others, and other organizations like Youth FX and so many others that are kind of led by people of color and supported by other people of color. I think it's such a blessing and an honor to kind of go from acting in Albany years and years ago, where it was only kind of like one or two sort of shows that were kind of focused on people of color, by people of color, directed and written by people of color, to like now having almost this plethora of choices where I can like one weekend go to this theater company and then next weekend go to this one, and working together and using different actors and different directors, like, hey, you acted in my show, can you direct my next show? Or hey, you did this, can you come do this for my next show? I think it's such a beautiful thing and such a great thing for the Capital Region and this growth. I would say that the balance still is nowhere near up to scale or up to par with that. I think for so long there's been an absence of voices of people of color in the community here, in the theater community here, unfortunately. And it's kind of really sad because there's so much creative talent and energy and power within the Capital Region community through dance and poetry and music and art and acting, that to kind of ignore that for so long has just really been almost criminal. And I think even being in that at such an early age and seeing that and kind of being a part of that, it's kind of heartbreaking to see. And hopefully with the rising these new theater companies and theater heads, that's going to change, and it's on its way. It's on its way changing, but it's still nowhere near up to scale.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
I mean, having done stories on Illuminate and also now having Morgan writing a column for us, one of the things that really strikes me is like the weight on her to carry that project and feel like this has to happen because we need it in the community. Right. And but then also, seeing that there are times where she grapples with like, can I carry this? And do I have enough energy to do this month? And do I, like, what about my life? And what about all this other stuff? And I know that, obviously it takes people to carry things on their back and really force it through, and long-term commitment. And you've been there, obviously. But what do you, I think one of her questions that she's asked publicly even is like, how do I take this to the next level? And so we're in a good spot now, but what do you think needs to happen to take it to a level where?
I think funding is definitely one of those things for sure. And I think the community's there, and I think the want is there. So that's really great. So we're in a really good place for that. I think funding at this point is kind of where we want to be and where we need to be looking at, and if I can't fund outsourcing, how do I fund together? Like there's Issa Rae had a really good quote when it came to networking. She goes, a lot of people think networking has to be you network up to go places, but it's also networking out, networking together. And, for these communities, there's so much of this, of the capital region, of this, of upstate New York, and the capital region, of this, fill in the blank, that should definitely be a forefront of, well, I'm here, I'm at this level, I've come up through the scales, and I'm here at this level. I see that you're new, and I see that you're up and coming. How can I help you? How can I support you? How can I help you network? How can I help you grow? How can I help you even so much if I can't do funding, if I can't fund you, what resources can I give you? Can I give you my facility? Can I let you use my theater? Can I let you use, some of my staff? Can I volunteer some of my staff to you? How can I help you? I think those questions also need to kind of be at the forefront of how can I help you? I don't think there's been a lot of that outsourcing from other theaters, that kind of outsourcing from this community where they've kind of been like, well, how can we help you? How can we support you? Yeah. Some, I'm not gonna say not at all, but just not enough. I'll say that.
Yeah, there's a need for people to come to your door as well. You not having to break down everybody's door and ask where you can go, or hey, can you help us out? It's there are these huge institutions with a lot of resources to give.
Absolutely.
And
having written early on in my career here for Metroland and various other places, and obviously growing up reading those papers and being involved in local media, and then going away. I mean, one of my frustrations then was that there wasn't coverage of communities past the everything white that was going on Lark Street, and it was a fight to get anything about artists of color or anyone doing anything interesting that weren't the standard few people. And it changed. When I came back, there had been change, and there's been major progress. You see stories about these people, but at the same time, there's a gap. There's because we know that and I've talked to people about the idea that there's this Ballin from Youth of X, and that there is this sort of ingrained Northeastern sort of racism that's quieter and more insidious in some ways.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That there was this unspoken culture of that, where it's well, who are they and what's the audience? They don't, they're not going to read the paper or whatever it is.
Oh, that's still. And I can't tell you just from a personal note or from listening to other people's stories. They go, I went to so and so, and the first thing they said, well, our audience wouldn't like that. Or I went to so and so, and they said, well, we don't think we'll get the backing for that, so we're going to pass on that, and we won't do this. But then the same, and throughout, the same way, it'd be like, oh, well, here, help us grow, help us change. We will, help us do this, help us, fill in the blank. So there's been a lot of that, and I think the capital region area is very special in a way because it sort of mirrors the sort of macrocosm of the world, especially the country around us. And I think what's really kind of almost frustrating about that is one of those major things is racism, right? Racism is one of the most taboo and major topics of the world that we face. And I think Albany has kind of absorbed so many things, the capital region has absorbed so many things around culturally and socially and whatnot, racism has definitely been one of those things, but it's sort of that underlying sort of things. We have this and this and this. Racism, no, we don't. We don't have that. No, we don't have that. We don't need that. I mean, we don't have that. I mean, we do, but I mean, it's little. It's in our pocket. It's not showing, but and it's sort of that blinders are on to it. And I think the creative and entertainment world here has definitely been affected by that. And it's sort of kind of that underhand language of basically saying, yeah, we don't want to do black shows.
It's also like calling back to what you said earlier about how like there are so many people of color with stories and art to share and like not a lot of places to put it. And then also sort of being like, okay, and then there are these people who are at that doorstep and like not letting people in, saying, oh, well, our audience wouldn't read that. And I read this post by Danielle Collin recently that's been like stuck with me the past like week or so. And she said, must be nice to write about flowers and have people actually be thinking about flowers and not, other things about like what does it mean? And like, it's not the exact quote because I can't.
No, I know. I saw the post
but
as
it's
well,
so like powerful because it's like everything that people of color get highlighted for or like talked about, it has to be revolved around their own identity and race. It feels like it has to be about, well, I'm doing this work and carrying that weight and like having this like responsibility on them. And it's like, well, they have other stories too.
Right.
Like
and it's
they're
almost,
creative things to share that are just as interesting and beautiful.
We have this like, there's so many things that, so many stories are untold, and so many sort of the stories that are told, so many different perspectives and depths and nuances and different ways of telling it that are out there in the world. But we only, especially here, it's kind of like we only can do like the same couple shows.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm tired of playing your Walter Lees. I'm tired of playing your Troys. I'm tired of playing your Tom Robinsons. I'm tired of playing, fill in the blank of the same 4 or 5 black shows that kind of go on all the time. Every 2 or 3 years here in the area that when they do pick them. And it's kind of like there's this huge like sea of plays and shows that are going on that people are writing or have been written, since like it's interesting when it comes to especially black theater. Every day I learn that there's a new show that I didn't know. It's not even like new from like the 2000s. It's like something from like the 80s and 90s. Like, wow, I didn't even know this show existed, and I never would dream to see it here in the area. Yeah. And it's just, Tupac had a quote, and I'm going to paraphrase this, I'm sure I get it wrong. And it was kind of like, when people are, if people are outside starving and hungry, and then there's people on the other side of a room that have food and filling up with food, but their door's locked, and we always singing, hey, please can we come in? Please can we come in? You never let us in. I mean, eventually we're going to kick down the door and bust in. And I think in that sense of what we're doing now is what we see with these theaters with, the great work that, Illuminate Theater's doing and Callaloo Theater's doing and the Black Theater Troupe of Upstate New York is doing and others are you're like, you know what? We're tired of asking. Mm-hmm. We're tired. We're just sick and tired of being sick and tired of asking. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna create our own sort of community, and we're gonna do our own thing, and that's what's gonna happen. That's what's happening now, and I think there's gonna be more of that. And I think that's gonna be on the rise. We're tired of asking. Mm-hmm. We're tired of asking, and then we're tired of being asked to make other theaters better. But then our voices don't go anywhere.
Yes.
I had
proving yourself all the time.
Right.
I just had an interview with Rachel Chavkin from Hadestown, who obviously is a white woman, but she's in town. She was the only female director, obviously, on Broadway this past season, and she won a Tony, and she got up there and was like, this is bullshit, and talked about it being sort of a lack of creativity and imagination on the part of folks whose job is to be imaginative and creative. Right. And what I find interesting is that obviously there are a lot more people from the city coming up and doing staging work here or rehearsing, and she's in town in August, Catskill, for the Lumberyard, doing this piece, the name of which I am not going to get right. Yeah. But essentially, it's about Reconstruction. It's examining Reconstruction through the lens of Gone with the Wind as a Confederate monument. and they've got 20 people, more than 20 people in the cast, and they're also writers, and so they're putting together this very provocative work down there that's forward thinking, has a diverse cast and all, and it'll come and it'll workshop 2 shows and then it's gone. But places like Lumberyard and places in Hudson and more drawing the city audience and creatives, and I do wonder if eventually they're going to start tapping into the talent pool around here.
But you say eventually, and that's such a and I lived in the city for about 2 years, and plethora of talent and great talent. I have still a couple friends of mine who are acting and getting gigs and we're on Broadway, and great people. But the eventually is the word that kind of stood out for me. That's such a 2019. It's kind of like eventually, not even fully like such an like. New York State is bigger than New York City.
Yeah.
Oh, and New York State is bigger than New York City. And I'm not even talking about just that, but just in general, because that happens, right? Yeah. That happens here. It happens. It's like, well, we'll just get New York City, or we'll get New York City actors, or we'll get New York City dancers, and it's like you have this. Like New York State is bigger than New York City, and you have all these people that work their butts off to develop their talent and to work on their skill. And they go to school for it, and they come back to their towns and they come back to their cities, and they go, "Hey, look what I did! Look what I did! Look what I learned! Look what I can do!" And they, people are like, "Oh, that's nice. Well, we're going to go to New York City." And it's sort of like eventually, it's like, well, I mean, that's the sad part of that. And again, not for that story, but just in general. Well, I hear that a lot.
I think eventually up here certainly applies, and in this, what I guess I meant more of is there's more creativity. Right. Happening up here because folks from the city are now escaping rent and blah, 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 blah. Right. And they're looking to take on more provocative work. So is there a chance that, not that because they're not casting people of color, but because they just new to the area, I'm just wondering if perhaps we'll see more opportunities, in that way, in some ways skip the local, right. Because there are people here who are so massively talented who aren't getting work, regularly, but, right. Could obviously be noticed by people who don't have blinders on. Right. But yeah, I get your point very much about.
Right. And I think, that's a way to look at it. I think there's a lot of people coming up from the city that kind of are noticing people here too as well. And I think people are kind of saying, well, you guys got all these hidden gems up here and you're not like, what's going on? I can't tell you how many stories of students around the area. We just had, I don't know her name, the actress she was in Stranger Things. Yeah. No spoilers, don't give spoilers. Yeah. But she was in Stranger Things. She's from Niskayuna, and there's always like a story in like that, from somebody from Schenectady or Albany or Troy or whoever that's up and around doing something. And it's kind of like, that's such a great once in a lifetime thing. Like, no, that's not once in a lifetime. There's there's people here that we can keep doing that, right? Yep. We can keep doing that. There's people here that are hungry for it, that have the skill for it, that have the talent for it, that are ready to hey, let me off the bench, coach.
Well, I think Youth FX is primed.
Oh, absolutely.
Because the film industry expanding so much and needing a talent pipeline. Right. And, you see the governor and politicians talking about expanding it, but it exists. Right. And it's more about making sure the connections are made rather than just people throwing their hands in the air and going, well, I'm upstate, so I'm going to cast downstate.
Right. Right. And I think one of the many things I like about Youth FX is they're definitely like a community-led organization. I mean, there's definitely, there's their staff and whatnot, but they're definitely like, hey, we don't have anybody right now that can do it, but we know these people that can do it. Let me give you in contact with these people. Or we don't know anybody that we have so-and-so to do it. They've done great work for us. Let me give you these people. And they're very the work that they do is very community based and very centered around, they're based out in Albany, but they do work all over the capital region, but they're definitely hey, we are definitely going to pull first and foremost from the talent here in the capital region before anything. And if we can't, we'll connect you to somebody that can. Yep. And I think that's one of the many things that I definitely appreciate about spaces like Youth FX, because they do that.
Yeah. And they're not finally, but they are, it seems like growing at such an amazing rate and getting a lot of due that I think has been owed them for a while. Right. But I do wonder if we might see that inspire more folks to get involved and assist them and create more branches of, because the work they do is sort of invaluable, and the films they create and giving the voice to folks who otherwise wouldn't. And it also speaks to your sort of segueing here, you're involved at Rooted and teaching there, and that's a community that Youth of X is technically located in.
Right.
And Rooted is also bringing this thing, and it feels like that creativity can only be good for the community. And
absolutely.
I'm wondering what your experience has been there now.
It's very being at Rooted has been such an honor and a blessing, because just with the great work that the owners, Shell Pion and Jamel Mosley, have done there, is just the work they do on their own. Hearing about it is phenomenal, and then kind of coming together and creating this entity for other people to not just to participate in, but to also facilitate and teach and lead, and to kind of say, well, here's our space. Our space connects to what you guys want. Let me give you an outlet here where you can instruct, where you can teach, where you can do yoga. I'm exploring the yoga. I've never been a yoga person before, but I'm currently hilariously exploring it. Still getting adjusted. So I've been to 2 of their yoga classes so far, and it's such a breathtaking experience to walk in and to see people look like you and to be in this space and to be comfortable in this space. I think if anything, what I've taken out of being at Rooted and working at Rooted is comfortability and openness, and more than anything. And I think that has to be a forefront. And but being there and seeing sort of these healing practices in one form or another, through yoga or tarot reading or intention setting or meditation or my own theater class, and see that, and then also see it led and be mostly made up of people of color, is such a beautiful thing to see. And it's been such an honor to be a part of that journey with them and with everybody involved.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your class, though?
On Saturdays, currently at the moment at 10 a.m., I teach Stand Up and Act Out, and which is a creative expressions class. It's not so much teach you how to act in class, though I do those, but this is more of looking at stresses in your life, or during the week or during the day, and traumas, current traumas, past traumas, and kind of looking at how to sort of deal with that through the theater lens, through theater and acting exercises. I've been taking, when I was being trained in theater and acting, the goal was to make yourself a better actor. But with those exercises and training activities that we took in, the sort of, I don't want to say symptom, but the sort of aftermath of it is a lot of us became sort of whole and sort of more connected to ourselves and sort of the world around us, and I often talk to friends of mine. They go, wow, you sound really grounded. And I never looked at that. And I kind of was like, yeah, I never think I was, I didn't think I was like that either. And it all mostly due to theater. I mean, some of it was experience, but mostly was due to just sort of knowing how to ground myself and knowing how to connect with myself and stay focused with myself to kind of handle stresses and traumas and things that come up for my own self. A lot of that was through those theater exercises, and sort of I kind of put 2 and 2 together, and then I kind of put that in those classes. So yeah, my class at 10 a.m. is Stand Up and Act Out. It's more of a creative expression class. So I want to make sure people I want to take it, but I don't know how to learn lines. I'm like, no, don't worry about it. You don't have to learn lines. It's nothing like that. We rarely do anything with lines, but it's more of creative expression, professional and personal development through theater exercises. It's really great, and it's really been fun. I've had a lot of sort of, I like to call them aha moments for myself through students that have come in to take it, and to kind of see that it's been such a really great experience, and to kind of see people kind of put 2 and 2 together and make that connection. Wow, I never really thought about that before. Wow, it gave me a different way to look at that. Or oh, aha, okay, and now I see why this really gets me angry, and now I understand why this really stresses me out, because back then so and so and so and so. So it's really great to have this thing that's really been a blessing on my life, and to be able to share that with others and then be there for that reaction.
Yeah. It's really interesting the way that people can use like their art form that they connect to the most, and like, because everybody always talks about really like, oh, I do this because it helps me so much, and I feel so good when I'm on stage, or I feel so good when I'm making art in whatever way, and then to use that as some almost like a form of therapy and realize the power in it is like really cool.
Right. We just did the HERS project at Albany High School, and I was just an acting coach for that.
Yeah.
But the sort of leadership and teachers at Albany High School really took the forefront of that. My great friend of mine, Noelle Gentile, she was the director, and we had a student director there too, and that was just being, and I kind of, and to have this written by women, young women, and acted by young women, and directed by young women, was such like a sort of, now that we're kind of in this world with this, a lot of movements are happening, a lot of voices, unheard voices are kind of taking expression and kind of taking the forefront, and which is great to see, and sort of kind of being thrusted in that project willingly and happily, and sort of seeing that right then and there. Usually people kind of see it gradually, but I was kind of like, whoa, this is interesting. But it was such, and I bring that up because it was such an experience to see these young ladies talk about traumas that they've been through, that they've experienced, that their friends experienced, and kind of turn that to a work of art, and using that art, as you said, using that art as a healing method for themselves, and then using that healing method for the people that came to see the show.
Right.
And for the people that, for the parents and siblings and friends to see the show. And that was one of my favorite, obviously to see the show and see the great work that these young ladies put together, but also to see the reaction that the audience had. And it was so just kind of like, parents crying and siblings crying, like, wow, I didn't know you guys, and to see like the faculty and staff of, the school district of the area kind of go, whoa, this was like inside of you guys this whole time. And I think that was kind of like a prime example that I was kind of blessed to see of how healing through the arts took place. And that's something that I definitely would always cherish. And, and also to see like, this high school out of this area of all these different theaters gets it. Right? Gets what the message is. Gets who needs to be in the forefront. Gets whose voices aren't being heard, and how we can take action and do it. And it's such a relief to kind of, every time I work over there, I do a project with them over there, I'm always like, something, if it was like with you guys or like another professional theater, I would pick you guys every single time because it's such a relief to kind of be in a room of like-minded creatives, not even worrying about the age, but just like-minded creatives that say, hey, I have a story to say, and I'm going to say it no matter what. And it was such a really great thing to see. And it stuck out as a prime example of what you just said of that.
I ran into Noelle a couple times during that process, and I didn't get to see the show, but I was hoping to, but she was, it was clear the impact it was having on her just to get through that and carry that weight, and even enter, she was on a panel for Film Albany, and for her to sort of transition from that headspace into this more like promotional film sort of headspace, it was difficult and emotional because you're working with these things that are so raw that you carry with you, and the stories that are so, some of the stuff that I heard about it's just.
Yeah, it was heavy. It was a lot of heaviness, and I think the way that she handled it and other staff handled it that were there was first and foremost instructing them how to let it go, how to put it down, or how to pick it back up and use it for this show, and that was really great to see. That as much as the talent and the skill in the theater building there, but it was like how to instruct to like, okay, we have this, there's this thing, right? This thing that's ours and that we carry, unfortunately. But now that we can't get rid of, but we can let go. And then we can pick it up, and we can let it go. We can pick it up, and we can use that. And that was really great to see.
Wow.
Well, thank you so much for coming in. I'm being told that we're up on time, but this is a powerful way to end. And I think, hopefully we'll have you back and talk a little bit more. And are there any projects coming up that
So I'm in a current show called Whitewashed with phenomenal actors that are in it. Danielle Collins is in it, and that's kind of looking at the scope of African American history from slavery till now, and kind of looking at how racism has affected us. There are many different ways, and does it still affect us? That's going to be opening up in the fall, but I'll share it and let you guys know. That's being directed by Michael Kennedy from Creative Action Unlimited, out in North Greenbush. But we're going to be doing shows all around. So.
Great.
But I think that's about it. 10 o'clock, 10 a.m. Saturdays, Rudy.
My daughter says we're going, so
right.
I don't know if it's. We'll see, but I let her know, and I thought she'd say no, but she said yes. So
I'm looking for it. I'll look for it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Good to have you.
Yeah,